So this time I'm going to demonstrate using interactive auto render mode. You can read about the automatic rendering mode in the Microsoft documentation under components and in render modes here. And what it will explain is the automatic render mode basically uses everything. So when the page starts to render, you're going to get initially a statically rendered page. It's going to be streamed down. You're going to then as the server will bring up a server rendered page, and as soon as that's operating, the interactivity will run by the server, and in the background you'll see the WebAssembly piece being brought down. So let's look at what we currently have. Now I've made a few changes since the previous version, just to kind of be able to illustrate some things. So one of the things I did is I brought in some logging into the client side. In order to use logging on the client side, you have to replace this line here that says builder build run async. We're going to, well, actually this is just to illustrate the logger. If you wanted to log something in program.cs, here we're splitting up the build and run task, using the get required service method to get the iLogger factory that is actually brought in automatically when you build the host builder will build for you, and logging something here just so we can see where the logging shows up. And then what I did is I injected the iLogger factory into my to-do clients, the client's data access layer, and I'm just logging that the server's been instantiated, that the client-side data access layer is being instantiated. And then I did the same thing with the server-side data access layer. I brought in a logger and just logged that this is created. So in addition to that, let's see, what else do we have? So right now we are using with the WebAssembly page, it's in interactive WebAssembly mode. So I'm going to run that. And it's going to get crowded in here, but we'll survive. And so now I'm going to go to to-do client. So notice the server data access layer is instantiated here. This was brought up, and it took a little while for this button to be accessible. Let me do that again. You can see here there's a little delay, and I actually removed the timing on the this is being brought up as fast as possible. There is no wait, but even when there's a wait, when we're getting the data as fast as possible, notice that there's a little delay before the button becomes clickable. So that is because when we are in interactive mode WebAssembly, all the interactivity is done on the front end, and we have to wait for the our single page application basically being downloaded onto the page. So there's this little delay. Not a bad one, and it's probably acceptable for a lot of cases, but we can make it better by doing this. Let me close this out. We can switch to interactive auto. And so what interactive auto is going to do is it's going to cascade out all of those modes. And in all other respects, this is the same. So I switched it off to interactive auto. And watch, it's almost instantaneous. And you can see the data access layer on the server is initiated. If I go to F12, you can see here in the console, let's see, where is it? Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, it's got the wrong message, I think. Let me see. Let's make that better. So the server side, this initial list was brought up with the server data access layer. As we can see here, let's reinstantiate so we can see it. And when it came back around, it actually instantiated the client-side DAL, made another request, it got the same thing, but it was able to, so then the client one, when the client WebAssembly page loaded, it initialized and built everything. And you notice that it's pretty much invisible from the user's perspective. So there's all this stuff going on, and our page loads a lot faster. So the conclusion here is basically this. If you really want to take advantage of everything, use interactive auto. It will use server-side code programming. When it can get the code to the front end, it will use WebAssembly on the front end, but you have to do, there's a number of things that have to line up. Specifically, you have to have your data access layers. You're going to use the same data access layer interface. So you're going to create an interface that lives in an entities folder on the outside. You're going to implement that interface on the server side for its access to data, and that data access layer is going to basically get the data directly from the database, and then your client is going to have a data access layer that is going to access its data through API calls to a controller, a web API on your server that's going to provide the data from the same server-side data access layer. So the server-side data access layer is actually used by both, but once the application is running in the client, it has to tunnel through an API to get to that data access layer. So that's basically what you have to do to use render mode auto. So there's a lot of plumbing that has to be put together to do auto, but we get the best of all worlds. We get much more responsiveness. Things load up a lot faster, and generally and you have better SEO. So you get the best of all worlds, but you do have to do a little bit of work to get it to work. And I guess now that I've got that working, I can go to my nav menu and switch this out to the, let's see, let's close all these. Switch the button over to the client version. We would not need the server version of this anymore because it's going to load up from here. So the next steps on this would of course be adding all the CRUD functionality, taking my mock and turning this into a data from a mock to something that actually works with the database, and then doing all the rest of the work. That is going to be basically the same kind of work you would do up till now with even an MVC app, hitting an API, and so and I will be providing more details of that in my blog, which will go through the same material that I did with this, but piece by piece and much slower and more detail. More for people who have not done web development before, or specifically .NET web development, and it'll go in at a slower pace. So that's pretty much the main differences between how you would do web development using, say, Blazor 6 to Blazor 8. Thank you very much.